Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Cambridge Coffee Corner. On this week's episode, we've got a great discussion on change management. And to help us with that discussion, I've got three great colleagues with me. I have got Joaqui Wilkins. She's the practice lead for Cambridge Retail Advisors around change management. Hi, Joaqui.
Hey.
And we've got Lawlor, project management professional for Cambridge Retail Advisors. Good afternoon, Joe. And of course, we've got Sarah Pelton. Sarah's one of the partners of Cambridge Retail Advisors. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Duncan.
So if everyone's got their coffee at the ready, we'll jump straight in. And where I'd like to go first is a little bit of an intro to change management. Everyone's got a conception about what change management is. And I'd like maybe you, Joaqui, just to kick us off by giving us a good definition of what it is, just to help people get their arms around it.
All right, Duncan. Yes, you're right. So many people have their own definition of what change management is. But change management, in a nutshell, is a structured approach to helping either individuals, teams, or organizations move from their current state to their desired future state. Keyword, desired. And change management is all about the people side of it, guiding the employees through the transition, their behaviors, their mindsets, the process, and the systems all in one.
Excellent. Thank you. I also think of change management as maybe helping retailers get value for money out of what they're going to be doing, because the changes that they're going to be putting in place are touching so many different areas of the business.
Yes.
And you're 100% right, Duncan, that we find that adoption is everything. You can put the best technology systems into place, but if your team is resisting the change, then you're not going to get the ROI that you had anticipated.
Yeah. And then another one related to that is if the teams are just insistent on repeating what they've always done and getting the same report that they always have, then you could argue, at least for that team, they shouldn't have changed anything at all. So I think it's a value discovery for sure.
Yeah, and early on buy-in from the team is definitely a major part of it when we're talking about the adoption. Right on, Sarah and Duncan, with that one.
Absolutely. Okay, to further help us with the framing of this, Joe, tell us what change management is not.
You're making me take the contrarian point of view. I'll try my best here. It's not new. Change management dates back decades. I mean, you can look at the Lewin's model. That's 1940s. That's old school. And really, that model anchors all future models that we use even up to today. McKinsey's, Porter's, ProSky. So aside from not being new, it's also not project management.
Yeah.
And these terms are often used and conflated. And for some good reason, by project and by size of organization, often project management gets parts of this. But ideally, they are companions. And I hate to use the word, but they should work synergistically. So again, they're not the same, but they use some of the same documentation.
Right.
So in your project management, you're looking at your stakeholder analysis, your communication plan, your risk assessment. These are all sister documentation, that should be worked on collaboratively. So I think those are the 2 points of difference I would start with.
Yep. And to add on to what you're saying, Joe, also, a lot of people just think that change management is just fancy emails going out. Hey, we're going to have a change. That's mostly that's what they think of change management. It's not just about communications. It's an overall organizational change management. That's what it's usually called, OCM. And it's about the training aspect, the testing aspect of it. Of course, the communication, business process mapping. Because we never want to be in a situation where it's just a lift and shift. And just like Sarah said earlier, we're going back to our old ways of doing something just on a new system. So.
And a lot of what we do in change management, Joaqui, revolves around the readiness assessment too, right?
Yes. Yes,
So
in the
maybe you
very
can talk a
beginning.
little bit about what we've done there on projects with the readiness assessment and how it's led to success.
So the readiness assessment is exactly what it sounds like. It's, are you ready for this change? And you're going through and asking questions to different stakeholders. And this is where that stakeholders analysis comes from that Joe was just speaking about. You're identifying who to speak to. And it's usually the people who has employees under them or directly involved in the process directly, and you're asking them questions about their willingness to change, their desire to change, any type of resistance that they have. What type of training would you that works best with you, and things like that. And you do that in the beginning to gauge, because over the course of the project you should get better, right? And
Yeah.
then towards the end, you do that readiness. Well, it will be more of like a go live readiness assessment to see where they're at. And it should be a major improvement from where we started
Yep.
if change management is done effectively.
Good stuff. Okay, folks, I'm going to test your brains now. And what I'm looking for is, have you got any examples of really good change management that you've experienced along your journey? What do you think?
Well, there was one example that I can think of. And it was, they brought in what I just mentioned was OCM, organizational change management, and it was addressing everything a part of change management. It was the communication, it was the business process mapping. We were doing a overall global payroll migration, and what was so good about it, change management started at the very beginning. So they had a stake in the game. They did not come in at the end, which we see a lot of time, or none at all, really, because like Joe said, it's usually the project managers taking on a piece of change. So we had dedicated resources and a actual work stream, the OCM work stream, and they successfully adopted the solution. And in the process, they were able to get other processes that were like highly manual to be automated along the way. And that is like the best thing possible. And everybody knew their job. Everybody knew their job. They weren't scared anymore. There was no fear. Leadership was happy. Everybody was happy about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen it done well as well. I mean, this sounds like a bit of a cliche, but I think great change management does start at the top,
Yes.
because at the end of the day, most organizations, they're rolling up into a head of a team, head of department, head of division, and as long as those heads of divisions are bought into the change, they
Hmm.
should be. I mean, particularly the larger projects. It could be ERP, it could be something else of
Yeah.
significance, it could be a data warehousing project, and they're looking at what
Hmm.
reporting they can get out. The leadership should be enthusiastic about it, and that should filter down to their teams, and they should immediately be thinking about the devotion of people into those projects in order for those people to get the most out of it. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's a bit of
Yeah.
a cliche, but
No, but you're so right. You're so right.
yeah,
If the employees don't see leadership like being enthusiastic about it, come on, it's going to rub off on them. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't
absolutely.
think this is it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're absolutely right.
So yes, buy-in by major stakeholders, extremely important. And because it's so important, we often miss the least. We often miss the actual end user who we need to actually operate the
Exactly.
systems
Yeah.
and have buy-in. And the story that comes to mind is exactly that. So at the lowest level of employment, the sales clerk, the associate, they're going to find the easiest way to do their job every day. It's like water. It's the path of least resistance. So
Mhm.
if you don't, in my opinion, have their buy-in and have their contributions as you're working about the software you're developing, the hardware you're choosing, they're going to find that path, and it may or may not be the path you chose. And one of my projects a number of years ago, as a contingency, which is a very important part of every project, we kept hard copy documents that could be used for their sales process. But associates having a minor issue and not having the correct communication paths to express it, and not being able to be part of the testing process to identify it, when there was that one issue, the first thing they did, and there's no fault in that either. They were commissioned employees. Could you imagine the frustration of looking at a new piece of tech that you barely had any buy-in to? You were not part of that process, and now is depriving you of the thing that makes your living. We didn't blame them, but I'll tell you, after that started to happen, the next thing that started to happen was the urban myth, which is another reason why you should always, in my opinion, start at the bottom, because that spreads like wildfire. It was astonishing how stores that we hadn't even deployed to yet were hearing the nightmares and the horror stories of the technology that will rob you of sales. And so that became a bushfire. We had to track down and work tenfold as hard as we ever would have at day one. And that's where they should have been involved. There should have been a rep at the kickoff meeting. That's not just a time for champagne. It's a time for work. And it's a time to get the input of the people who need the tool, right? Yeah. And I think in software development, we often forget about that.
I'd like to round it off now, okay? What I'd like to do is just go around the table and just get from each of you a key takeaway for thinking about change management. So, Joaqui, I'll come to you first. What do you think?
I think that the future of change management will be less about telling people what to do and more about co-creating the journey with them. In the future.
Good one. Sarah, what do you think? What's the key takeaway?
The key takeaway for me is, I think the lesson learned from this discussion should be that having someone like Joe or Joaqui, a change management expert, as part of the team, even on a part-time basis throughout the length of the engagement, is not a heavy investment, but these are the people who can help organizations anticipate resistance, smooth out that confusion, and keep people engaged from the top down, even though I hate to use that term. I think that's very important.
Thank you, Sarah. Joe, to you.
Joaqui, I just put in my computer your response, and it was beautiful. It was a haiku. I cannot come up off the top of my head a better response than you just did. But what I can say is, when we're looking at the parallel streams of project management and change management, I think if you're going to take anything from change management, it should be how to look at your goals. What is the definition of done? Because most of the time at project management, we're just looking at, can we get the store started? And change management fundamentally changes how you think about that. It says that's one step of many, and it never stops. And it's just as important to evaluate how it's being adopted and to continue that feedback loop to become even better and stronger.
Thanks for that, Joe. I think my key takeaway is almost a little repeat of what I said earlier, which is, don't think of change management as a cost to the overall project. Think of it as the keys to unlocking the value across all of the affected teams, because only then can you really drive the value out of those teams with whatever change has been put in place. I mean, we care a lot about systematic stuff because we're almost always immersed in the technology, but driving the value out of it only comes out of the key users across all the teams getting the values out of their individual components. So I think that's a good thing to think about. Think of it as a value driver rather than just an overhead cost of change. So that's my key takeaway.
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, that's all we've got time for on this week's edition of Cambridge Coffee Corner. I'd like to thank Joaqui, I'd like to thank Joe and Sarah for joining us for coffee. Until the next time, see you soon.